Walk through the center of any modern metropolis, and you are immediately surrounded by people. Thousands of individuals brushing past each other in transit hubs, packing into elevators, and living stacked in apartment grids. We are physically closer to our neighbors than at any point in human history. Yet, despite this extreme physical density, people across the world are reporting record levels of isolation, social fatigue, and emotional disconnection. This chart tracks that specific divergence over recent decades. The blue line represents the steady historical increase in urban population density. Tracking right alongside it is a sharp, steep rise in reported levels of chronic loneliness in heavily developed centers. Behavioral scientists and neuroscientists are now investigating a hidden factor behind this trend: the built environment and urban design itself. This creates a paradox of proximity. Modern cities are being perfected for spatial efficiency and speed, but in the process, we appear to be losing the architectural features that once fostered human connection. To understand why this happens, we have to look at how the human brain evolved. For almost all of human history, people lived in environments defined by natural textures, irregular patterns, and organic complexity. The human nervous system is wired to feel secure in those highly varied settings. Modern architectural geometry often moves in the exact opposite direction, and this diagram shows how our nervous system reacts to that shift. On the left, organic curved shapes produce a steady, calm baseline brainwave. On the right, when the brain processes sharp, rigid angles and sterile minimalism, it triggers a subtle, involuntary stress spike. The brain perceives these harsh visual forms as faintly threatening. This biological mismatch is compounded by a psychological phenomenon called cognitive monotony. As the diagram expands into an endless grid of identical squares, replicating the look of a standard glass facade or concrete apartment block, the brain's cognitive stimulation plummets. The visual environment lacks the sensory depth the brain requires to stay engaged, causing rapid mental fatigue. Urban residents end up navigating a continuous state of low-level, subconscious stress. By the time they have an opportunity to socialize, the physical environment has already drained the psychological energy required to seek out meaningful social interactions. You can see this draining effect dictate behavior in the physical layout of the city, especially in the large, featureless concrete plazas designed to sit at the base of corporate towers. Environmental psychologists study the behavior in these spaces by observing the edge effect. This map tracks human foot traffic in a wide, open plaza. Notice how the dots actively avoid the exposed center. Humans instinctively seek psychological shelter, gravitating toward walls and physical boundaries to protect themselves. When we speed the map up, the behavior becomes even clearer. People form straight, unbroken lines along the protective edges, rushing directly toward the exits. The space functions purely as a transit zone, actively discouraging anyone from lingering or mingling. This spatial defense mechanism extends directly into our homes. Floor-to-ceiling glass towers are intended to symbolize openness, but they leave residents feeling visually exposed. The natural reaction is to pull the blinds, put on headphones, and hide behind digital screens to regain a sense of privacy. When architecture prioritizes vast, transparent spaces with little shelter, it inadvertently triggers this state of defensive psychological withdrawal. Inside the modern high-rise, this isolation is built into the daily routine. A resident can pull into a private garage, walk through a controlled lobby, and ride a private elevator directly to their apartment without ever pausing. This hyper-efficient journey relies on the elimination of a crucial social ingredient: architectural friction. Historically, older urban layouts were full of friction. Shared courtyards, narrow stoops, and dense walkable marketplaces forced people to slow down. You had to bump into your neighbors. Those slow, repeated, low-stakes interactions built familiarity and eventually community trust. Modern building systems treat those encounters as inefficiencies. As this camera smoothly glides down an empty, highly polished corridor, you can see an environment optimized only for speed and controlled access. It actively designs out the chance of a casual encounter. By treating daily inconveniences and random encounters as flaws to be fixed, modern cities have successfully engineered away the invisible glue that holds a community together. The biological toll of this isolation is significant. When people live in high-density environments without meaningful psychological connection, their brains engage defensive coping mechanisms to survive the sensory overload, leading to elevated stress markers and poor mental health outcomes. Recognizing this impact has led architects and scientists to explore an emerging discipline called neurourbanism. Neurourbanism prioritizes human biology over pure economic logic. This architectural rendering illustrates its foundational principles, integrating tactile materials like warm wood, highly variable natural light, organic curved geometry, and heavy vegetation directly into dense urban interiors to lower stress markers. This shift requires deliberately designing communal spaces that reintroduce positive friction, walking paths, communal courtyards, and shared public areas that naturally facilitate the low-pressure social encounters our brains crave. In the past, we measured a city's success by the height of its skyline or the efficiency of its economy. Moving forward, the ultimate metric may be how well a city sustains the biological imperative for human connection.